hours that I have, we really can't do. So what I plan to do in 3 hours is to give you the essence of stochastic dynamic programming. Shaiju has already derived it for deterministic control. So I will do similar thing for stochastic control, but most of the time, instead of giving the proofs, I will give you the underlying ideas, and then one can go through the proofs. And Suresh Kumar is going to, I will mostly concentrate on non-degenerate case, and Suresh Kumar will do in details the degenerate case. So let's just take 5 minutes to recall what Shaiju has already done, the deterministic optimal control. So we have a controlled stochastic controlled equation, ordinary differential equations, Bt xt ut and maybe x of 0 is equal to some element in Rd, and we want to minimize some cost, minimize 0 to capital T, some cost C x excess us ds plus g of xt, if this is finite horizon, and there are versions which are infinite horizon, which I will do later when I do stochastic control. So we want to minimize with respect to all control u. Now we have to define what is called a control. A control is, this is the controlled process. U, if it is a finite horizon problem, then 0 to capital T, there is a set u. Okay, this is some given set, it's called the control set. This is the control set, and this is a measurable function. Measurable function. So basically an optimal control problem is minimize this subject to this. So it's a dynamic optimization problem. It's a optimization problem subject to dynamic constraints. This can be treated as constraints, and this is the function that we are minimizing. So it's basically a minimization problem. It's an optimization problem with dynamic constraint. Constraint is dynamic, and hence this is known as optimal control problem. And there are two basic approaches to optimal control problem. One is Pointryagin maximum principle, which is very powerful, and the other is dynamic programming, which leads to PDE, Hamilton-Jacobi-Bellman equation. So here we will take the latter approach, namely the dynamic programming. And in the dynamic programming, what we define is called the so-called value function. Value function Vt of x, Vt at any time t between 0 to t, x is defined as the minimum cost, that is infimum u dot t to capital T C S excess us ds plus g of xt. This is where where again I have to change a little bit. Here this is S, and this is x of t is little x. So if the dynamical system, this controlled dynamical system, the starting time is t, and the starting at time t the state is x, and this is the differential equation, then this is I call Vt of x, it's called the value function. This is the, if the total horizon that we have is 0 to capital T, then I am starting from some t, which t can also be equal to 0. So this is called the minimum cost to go from little t to capital T. In particular, V0 of x will be this quantity. Now the dynamic programming principle, if you want to say it in one sentence, the dynamic programming principle is that if an optimal trajectory is broken into two pieces, then the last piece is also optimal. This is called the dynamic programming principle in one sentence. and the consequence of that dynamic programming principle is an integral equation Vt of xt, and Shaiju has proved that this is infimum of u dot. Here one must realize, when I am taking the infimum here and the infimum here, minimize this, this is a measurable function from 0 to u, whereas here when I am doing, I am starting from t, so this is a measurable function t to u is the control set. So here, since my starting time is t, so all the available controls are measurable function from t to u. Now here the dynamic programming is, here is 0, capital T, little t, break it up, t to t is my horizon now, break it up into some intermediate point, let us say t plus delta. Then the dynamic programming principle, which I said in words, translates into t plus t c of s xs us ds plus vt Now if you look at this, the dynamic programming principle is that infimum, so I am taking the cost from t to t plus delta, and then I am taking the minimum cost from t plus delta to t, and if I take the minimum of this, then I get the minimum from t to t. This is the minimum from t to, this is the minimum from t to capital T, which can be split into two terms. T plus delta onwards I pay the minimum cost, and then I pay the cost from t to t plus delta, and then I minimize. Then these two will be the same. That is called the what I said, if an optimal trajectory is broken into two pieces, the last piece is also optimal. That is translated into this particular situation, leads us to this integral equation. Now one of the fundamental points to note in this integral equation, I am not giving the proof, Shaiju has already, you have done that, right? Yeah. So since Shaiju has already done that, if you go through the proof carefully, there is one fundamental thing that we do here, and the fundamental thing we do here is called controls, concatenation of controls. Concatenation means you put two pieces of controls and patch them up. The resulting control is also an admissible control. In other words, there is something like this. So u of t, let us say there is a measurable function u1 of t. So for t belonging to, let us say 0 to some capital little t1, and then this is some other control t belonging to t1 to t. If I take two controls and join them at some arbitrary point in between, here is t1, then this is also an admissible control, because an admissible control is just a measurable function. So patching up of two measurable function is a measurable function, there is absolutely no problem. In fact, if you look at the history of optimal control, people started with continuous control, because then it's easier to prove the existence of a solutions and so on. But if you take u to be a continuous control, then you can't patch it up. The second level of optimal control theory grew, that piecewise continuous control. And if you look, one of the classic book on this topic is a book by Fleming and Rischel, Deterministic and Stochastic Optimal Control. The whole book is, though it's an excellent book, they deal with only piecewise continuous control. So piecewise continuous control has tremendous limitations. So one goes to measurable functions. So dynamic programming principle is hinged on the fact how to, you have to always take two pieces, join them together, the resulting piece must be an admissible control. That means it's a control such that the control dynamical system must have a unique solution. So that is the basic principle of dynamic programming, and this is where the things in stochastic optimal control becomes far more involved. So dynamic programming principle in stochastic optimal control is far more involved. One has to be very careful, and therefore if you see many books in stochastic optimal control dealing with controlled diffusion processes, quite often the proof of dynamic programming principle is not given. It's in certain cases the proof can be bypassed, in some cases the proof cannot be bypassed. So what I will do is I will do something in between. I will not bypass it, I will give you the essential idea but not prove it. Now let's see the counterpart for stochastic differential equation. So what we are going to do is controlled diffusion processes. So a controlled diffusion process will be written as d of xt equal to b of t xt ut dt plus sigma t xt ut dwt, and x of 0 will be equal to x0. So what are these quantities? Let's take, this is a RD valued random variable, B is a function, so B is a function from, let's take 0t where t can be infinity also, 0t cross RD cross U, U is the control set, normally a compact metric space, RD cross U to RD, this is called the drift vector. Now it's like stochastic differential equation, the difference is there is a control. Sigma is a function from 0t cross RD cross U to, without loss of generality I can assume that this is a it's a square matrix without loss of any generality, because what we are going to do with, we will not worry too much about strong solutions, we will worry about weak solutions only. So if sigma is a rectangular matrix, then we will replace sigma by sigma sigma star non-negative square root of that. And Wt as usual, this is d-dimensional standard Brownian motion, standard Brownian motion. And then this is, since everything is now stochastic, this is also a random variable. This is no more a given point, it's a random variable, and that's important because in stochastic dynamic programming we will split at some point, and at that point xt will not be some, if you write this here as x and develop the theory, there will be some limitations. So x0, it's a random variable. Now we have to make some assumptions, okay. So to ensure that this has a unique solution, so how do we ensure that? First thing we have to ensure is that this is square integrable, right? Then I have to ensure that this and this do not interfere with each other. In other words, x0 and this Wiener process is independent of each other. That condition I have to give. Then we have to assume conditions on B. The conditions that we normally assume, one can generalize it, is, let's suppose that this is ellipsis continuous here, or locally ellipsis continuous here uniformly with respect to this, and this has a linear growth. Similar condition here, just local ellipsis here uniformly with respect to the third and linear growth. Or if it has uniformly ellipsis with respect to this, that's even stronger, uniformly ellipsis with this will have a strong solution, provided we have to now specify what is ut. Everything is fine except that, remember, in deterministic control, we don't have this term. We do not have any randomness in it, and therefore what is a control? The control is u. In deterministic control theory, u is a function 0 to Rd, sorry, 0 to u. U is the control set. So any measurable function is a control. This kind of a control is called open loop control. Control is a given function of time, but normally even in deterministic, one can't really work with this kind of a control, because control as a given function doesn't work. Control normally works as a feedback. Feedback in the sense that u of t must be some functional of the past paths. That means we have to take into account what is known. So what is known is the state xt, we are observing it, and our control should be based on that. Now if you do a similar thing for a deterministic control, in most of the time the ordinary differential equation will not have any kind of a solution. That is not the case. Yeah?
Not in the value of the variable, it's time t, but in all the past.
All the past. All the past. So ut is some function u bar of x0t. I mean, even if you take this case, this is called Markov control. Even under this, the ordinary differential equation, and this is the measurable function, right? So ordinary differential equation will not have any solution, right? So what do we do here? So how do we? So in stochastic control, first thing is that ut, this control, when we talk about control here, is this is what we talk about control. U dot control. Control means here, control is, since everything is stochastic, control is not a function but a stochastic process. Control has to take care of the uncertainties as well. So control is not a function of time alone, it's a stochastic process. So u is a u valued stochastic process. Of course, every stochastic process that we talk about, we will not spell it out repeatedly, that they have measurable sample paths. If they don't have measurable sample paths, then we can't do anything. So it's a, whenever we talk about a stochastic process, we mean that it has measurable sample paths. So u dot is a u valued stochastic process with measurable sample paths. Now the question is, if u is any u valued process with measurable sample paths, then this need not have any solutions at all. We have to ensure that this equation has some solution, strong or weak. You know, we in stochastic control, we are not very particular about strong. Once in a while it helps, but weak will be enough for reasons I will explain. So some solution is needed. But suppose, for example, u is an arbitrary control, okay, then this will not have, for example, suppose u is a stochastic process which anticipates the increments of the Brownian motion, then it will go in loops, right? So it will not have any. The whole system here, we have to remember that the whole system is driven by this Wiener process. And therefore the future, so the controller is choosing this process. So there is a controller sitting somewhere, either a human being or some automated control. He or she or it is using the information and choosing this stochastic process based on the available information. Now the whole information is getting, the whole information means we are observing xt. Xt is the state of the system, and we assume that the state of the system is observable to us, and based on this observation we have to take decisions. That means we have to take the control. Now the xt is driven by wt. Xt is getting driven by wt. If the future increments of wt are correlated with ut, then it will go in loops and xt cannot have a solution. And therefore, the first thing we have to assume is that the ut does not anticipate. So this is, if I say it in language, the controller has information of the past and the present, but does not anticipate the future. This is the basic premise that we will work on. There are work on anticipative control also, but that's quite complicated. The controller has, these are the so-called non-anticipative control. Mathematically speaking, you take this sigma algebra, that Wt, so you take T and S, 2 points, then Wt minus Ws is the future increment of the Brownian motion from S to T. This must be independent of whatever has happened in the past, and whatever has happened in the past is x0, xs, us, ws, s less than or equal to t. Sorry. This is the information up to s, up to and including s. This, the right hand side represents the information that is available up to time. So x0, xu the state process, the initial state, the states process, the, let me put v here because I am using v. So the initial state, the state up to and including time s, the control up to and including time s, the Brownian motion up to and including time s. So this is the past and present information. Yeah?
Why is necessary the x since the x is the solution success?
Sorry?
It's necessary that the increment is independent. X since the x is solved is
Okay, so I don't need to put x here. It's not needed. It will again go in loop. So this is one. No, u has to be, because u is based on that. Huh? Huh?
If the control itself is an uncertain, how do you control another uncertain process?
We will see. We will see. Control is uncertain, and control is a stochastic process.
Okay. Is it governed by another stochastic differentiation?
No, no. Control is a stochastic process that drives this. There is no problem. I will explain that. Okay. So this future increment must be independent of this. This is called a non, and here I can, I can include this also. There is no problem if I include this. These two sigma algebras should be independent. This is called a non-anticipative control, and this is the maximum allowable control that we will be talking about. Now let's take examples of non-anticipative control. Okay, if I give you an example, your thing will be your question will be answered. Suppose that u equal to u of t equal to some functions u bar of t xt, then this will be automatically satisfied. U bar is some measurable function. So u bar is a measurable function. U bar is a measurable function from 0t cross Rd to u. If it is a measurable function, then if you take u of t, okay, now you can identify u bar as the control. Remember, here there is an omega, here there is an omega, but u bar is deterministic. It's a function. So sometimes it's called the control strategy or control policy. The control policy is deterministic, but the control, if in a stochastic system, your control cannot be a deterministic process, particularly if you are taking feedback, right? Because the feedback is, you are taking feedback on a stochastic process, so it can't be deterministic. So omega is always there. We never, in probability, we have the habit of suppressing omega from everywhere. So this is it. This is one type of control. This is called Markov control. Or you can, if ut equal to some u bar of t x of 0t, where this is a appropriate function such that progressively measurable, okay, the whole path, and this is progressively measurable with respect to the filtration generated by xt. Then this is another control. This is the general feedback. This is called a feedback control. This is called a feedback control, and a particular case of a feedback control is called Markov control. And if there is no explicit time dependence here, this is called a stationary Markov control. So feedback control, so first the largest class of control is the non-anticipative, which is open loop. Yeah.
U is now stochastic, right? This ut or it takes the crisp value.
Sorry.
This ut, no?
Ut is equal to u bar of,
So is it crisp thing or I think it should be crisp, right? From
u bar is a function from 0t cross Rd to u.
but this xt can take any value, no? It is random.
Ah.
So that means ut also can take any value.
Not any, random doesn't mean it can take any value.
You are allowed. I mean,
Yeah.
that
So ut is also a stochastic process. It's a stochastic. That's what I said. I suppressed omega here, right? Here also there is an omega because there is an omega here. So this is a general feedback control. A particular case is Markov control, and a more particular case will be stationary Markov control. All these satisfy this property, non-anticipativity. But it can be a general non-anticipative. Now the question is, suppose this process ut is a given non-anticipative control. That means non-anticipative process. If it is a given non-anticipative, that means this is not the case. This is not the case. It's already given to us. Ut is already, what are given to us? Here, let's see what are given to us. X0 is given to us. So we have, first of all, the Holy Trinity is given to us. This is given to us. X0 is given to us. W is given to us. B is given. Sigma is given, and U is given. U is also a given non-anticipative process. Then it's just a stochastic differential, parametric stochastic differential equation. And therefore, whatever you have seen so far, the same process, the same iterative process will go through, and this will admit a strong solution. Almost surely strong unique solutions. It will admit under normal conditions, that is ellipses, no problem. If it is a given non-anticipative control, there is absolutely no problem. But the point is, given non-anticipative control is good for mathematical thing, but if you want to apply it, you cannot apply it in any particular situation. A given stochastic process as a control is is not applicable. We have to go through feedback. Even this feedback will be very difficult to apply. Normally we need a Markov control. Right? Now if you take one of these, say this or this, and plug it there, in general it won't have any solution. Remember, I am not assuming any condition on sigma. In particular, sigma will be maybe equal to 0, right? Or what is called, there are two cases, and I will discuss the non-degenerate in more detail. Look at this matrix sigma, then take sigma sigma star, right? That will be a symmetric non-negative definite matrix. Okay, if that non-negative definite matrix is uniformly parabolic or not. If it is uniformly parabolic, of course I will remove this from here. If it is uniformly parabolic, then the situation is much better. If it is not uniform, if it is uniformly parabolic, it's called non-degenerate controlled diffusion. If it is not uniformly parabolic, that means it's called a degenerate control system. And remember that there is a huge difference between the two, non-degenerate and degenerate. Non-degenerate means this A, which is sigma sigma star, I will be more precise a little later, A sigma sigma star, this is uniformly parabolic. Uniformly parabolic, if you want to translate it in terms of eigenvalues, that means all the eigenvalues will be uniformly bounded away from 0. Not only positive, it is much stronger than positive definite. It is a non-negative definite symmetric matrix. So the eigenvalues are going to be real and non-negative. I am not just assuming they are positive, but I am saying that they have a uniform positive lower bound. That is called the non-degenerate case, and the degenerate case is when it is not uniformly parabolic. Now what is the difference? Look at it from a completely intuitive viewpoint. Suppose it is uniformly parabolic. Now don't worry about this control, for the time being forget about, there is a control in the noise term. Suppose it is uniformly parabolic, let's not have this. Suppose it is uniformly parabolic. Then what is happening is, you take any direction in RD. Any direction in RD, sigma has a presence. Because the eigenvalues are of A are uniformly bounded away from 0. So any direction there is a noise. Whereas suppose sigma is 0 along some direction, or comes arbitrarily close to 0 along some direction, along that direction there will be no effect of the noise. In other words, the non-degenerate case is the case where noise is uniformly affecting the state, uniformly undercoat. The noise is there in every direction. You cannot ignore the noise. Whereas suppose this is not uniformly parabolic, then the strength of the noise along some eigen direction, along some direction, becomes vanishing or 0. If it is 0 along that direction, there is no noise at all. So along that direction it becomes a deterministic ordinary differential equation. And you know that if you have an ordinary differential equation, there are problems. It is difference between solving a first order system and a second order system with uniformly parabolic, right? A second order equation is much easier to solve because of the diffusive effect, and the diffusive effect is coming from this term. So non-degenerate is much easier, degenerate is more difficult. So since I am not giving a proof, I will describe both, but more details I will talk about in the non-degenerate case. So that's the first thing. Now let's I have deleted now ut from here for technical reasons. Now still I am not in this direction, I have not assumed non-degeneracy. So let us do the general case a little more. So my standard Lipschitzian hypothesis, that's all I have, and ut is a non-anticipative control. So under this has an almost sure unique solution. Now sigma may be equal to 0 or sigma may be degenerate in some directions. As we all know that in general in an optimal control problem there is no optimal control, usual optimal control. Have you talked about relaxed control? Relaxed control you haven't?
No.
Okay, fine. So let me talk about relaxed control a little bit and then explain this. Now for the timing, let us take the back to stochastic deterministic optimal control. So I have this d of t xt ut, and I want to, this is by vtx, the standard definition of value function, and in most of the cases, barring a few simple cases, most of the cases an optimal control does not exist. If I take optimal control, what is the definition of optimal control? The definition of optimal control is 0 to t measurable. In this case, in most of the situations, an optimal control will not exist. In other words, existence of an optimal control in this situation will be more of an exception than a rule. There are cases in which you will find it, for example, LQ problem, linear system with quadratic cost, and few other cases where you can find, but there are many interesting cases where you won't find an optimal control. An optimal control doesn't exist. Then what do you do? Then what we do is, what we define, there is a concept called relaxed control. The relaxed control is u, instead of u I will take mu. Mu is a measurable function from 0 to pu. So instead of u I am taking pu, probability measures, right. Now what happens is u can be treated as a subset of pu by identifying each u with a Dirac measure at u. By identifying, if you have an element u here, identify this with delta u. Delta u is an element in pu. So therefore, the usual control is a part of the relaxed control. Now what are you doing in the relaxed control? Mu is 0 to pu, then what is the relaxed trajectory? A relaxed trajectory will be x dot of t equal to bt xt u mu du, integration over u. This is a relaxed trajectory. Now what is the motivation behind a relaxed trajectory? The motivation comes from discrete time case. Suppose my time is discrete, then I have a discrete equation. So xn plus 1, this is equal to some b n xn un. This is my usual setup in the discrete time. So instead of un, I am changing it by mu n. Instead of taking, so what is un? Un is a function from n to u. This is a control. My control is a function from n to u. And what will be a relaxed control? Relaxed control will be a function from n to pu. And a relaxed trajectory will be xn plus 1 will be equal to integral over u bn xn u mu du. This is my relaxed trajectory. Now what am I doing here in a relaxed trajectory is at every time n, I am choosing an input from u. Un is an element of u. So in engineering jargon, it says that every time I choose an input from u. In relaxed, in this setup, this is called randomized control. Randomized control. In randomized control, at each time n, the control is a probability measure. Is a probability measure. In other words, I have a probability measure mu, and I am generating a random variable whose distribution is mu. So at every point, I am generating a random variable whose distribution is mu, and therefore my inputs will be random. My inputs will not be un, but it will be un with some probability, and that probability will be generated by mu. So mu of n is a probability measure on u which determines the distribution of un. Un is no more a deterministic input, but it's a randomized inputs, right? Here I should write here mu n. Here I should be writing it as mu t of t. So it's a randomized control. Instead of choosing an input in a deterministic way, I am choosing an input using a probability distribution. And how am I doing it? At every time, I do not look at the past. I look at mu n, and generate a random variable independent of the past, independent of everything, and I generate a random variable. That is why this is called randomized control. Now randomization in continuous time is not possible. That's why we are using the terminology relaxed control. Now suppose here I have a discrete time, then I can keep on generating IID sequences. Basically my mu-n's are now IID sequence, not IID, independent sequences with distribution mu-n. Now you cannot do that in continuous time. You can generate independent, but then you will not have measurable sample path. Continuously in time, you cannot generate stochastic processes which will have measurable sample paths. That's not possible. And therefore, though the physical intuition behind relaxed control is the same as randomized control, and for this reason I have seen several literature in which they also call it randomized control. That's completely incorrect. Randomization in continuous time, because of technical reasons, cannot be done. Because if you want to randomize continuously in time, then this stochastic process mu t will not have measurable sample paths in general, and therefore you cannot do anything about it. And therefore don't think of randomization, keep the randomization in mind, call it a relaxed control. It's the generalization of usual control. So the usual paths can be subsumed in the relaxed paths. So relaxed paths, I am generalizing it. So pu is embedded in pu. The difference is that u can be any subset. Okay, need not be convex, but pu is always convex. You treat pu, the set of probability measure, as the vector subspace of vectors. It's a subset of the set of all finite signed measures. Then this set is convex. pu is a convex set, whereas u can be anything. So what it is doing is a convexifization of the problem. The original problem is not convex, u may not be convex, but pu is convex. So this is called a relaxed control, and I wanted to tell you that relaxed control is not a randomized control. But anyway, whenever we implement any continuous system, it is implemented in discrete time, and therefore a relaxed control when implemented will be implemented in discrete time, in which case the randomization, the physical concept of randomization will be back, but in continuous time it is not randomized control, it is relaxed control. So we will work with relaxed control. Now we will always work with relaxed control for technical reasons. So my control is no more ut now, my control is now mu t, and everywhere whenever I am using the same b, that means I am basically integrating. I am using the same b, but basically I am integrating with respect to mu. Now what is my mu? Mu is a given non-anticipative control taking values in pu. So it's now a measured valued process. A control is a measured valued process, and I will explain why I need this. But whether it's u or pu, the existence doesn't change. Existence uniqueness of the solution, whether it's a relaxed control or it's a non-relaxed control, it doesn't matter. It remains the same. It's the same. But now what is the optimal control problem? Minimize there are cost functions, say suppose it is finite horizon, then it will be 0 to t cs xs mu s ts plus in finite horizon. This is what we have to minimize. Minimize over all admissible control. By admissible control means a relaxed control which is non-anticipative. Now the question is, the cost is now a random variable, right? This everything is a random variable. The cost itself is a random variable. Now you have to minimize the random variable. We don't minimize that because there are uncountably many sample points. You can't minimize this. This is the random variable. We don't minimize the random variable, right? So what do we do is, one easy way of doing is take expectation, and minimize. So instead of minimizing the random variable, take expectation of the random variable and minimize. This is the standard approach, and this minimization is called risk neutral this is called the risk neutral cost. That means I am replacing the random variable by its expectation. It can lead to errors because I am minimizing a random variable by its expectation. Now suppose this random variable has a high variance, then this may not give the right answer, right? And therefore we have to worry about its variance. Now if we worry about its variance, then which do you want to do? Minimize the mean and then do something about the variance? You can't, or do something both about it. So if you know in finance, Markovich's portfolio selection, what he does is he fixes a mean level and then minimizes the variance. So mean variance approach, by which that was the Markovich's, and further to that there was capital asset pricing model. What they do is they keep the mean fixed and then minimize the variance. The variance is treated as a risk and then people follow it. But in most of the stochastic control literature, one talks about a risk neutral cost. That means you don't worry about the variance, or there is something called risk sensitive control. You take care of the risk. right? So in that case, instead of minimizing this, you minimize an exponential cost, exponential theta of this. Theta is supposed to be, theta has the, theta is a parameter chosen appropriately, and this is called the risk aversion parameter. If this is, theta is positive, then you are risk averse. If theta is negative, you are risk seeking. So since we are, if you take the exponential cost, mathematically, if you are taking the instead of minimizing this one, if you are minimizing an exponential function and then taking the expectation, and of course, to come back to the same unit, you have to take log also, but since log is an increasing function, it doesn't matter whether you take log or not, the same control will work. So here, when this is exponential, then you are taking care of all moments, just not the first moment, you are taking care of all moments, and in general, theta tending to 0 refers to this case. So this is the risk parameter. When the risk parameter goes to 0, normally under certain circumstances, one gets back the risk neutral case. But there is a huge difference between the mathematical analysis of the two. The mathematical analysis of the two is, this is an additive cost. That means you are paying a cost and you are integrating over the time, terminating the whole thing at capital T and then paying a terminal cost and exiting. And if t is infinity, this term is not there. Here you are not doing the same thing. You are instead, you have a multiplicative cost. You have a multiplicative cost, and therefore the structure of dynamic programming will be completely different. There will be dynamic programming for this also, but this is an multiplicative cost and this is an additive cost, and therefore the nature of dynamic programming will be completely different. These two are, by studying this, one doesn't immediately get any result for this, because this is structurally a very different problem, more important than this problem, but far more difficult technically. So let's talk about, in deterministic, it doesn't, in deterministic such problems don't arise, because in deterministic control everything is deterministic, so you minimize that. But when you talk about stochastic control problem, your cost is a random variable, and therefore what do you minimize? You cannot minimize the random variable, you try to minimize its expectation, perhaps taking care of the variance also, or you try to take an exponential criterion, choosing appropriate theta based on your risk appetite and then minimize. But structurally they are two different problems. I will not go into that multiplicative one, okay, I will go into the standard one, the risk neutral cost. So in the risk neutral cost, this. Now what will be the value function here? The value function, if you want to define, value function will be Vt of x will be expected value t to capital T C Now here it's interesting, because most of the time under the control that we will do, it may not have a strong solution. But as I said, strong or weak, it doesn't matter, right? Whether we have a strong solution or we have a weak solution, it really doesn't matter, because after all we are taking expectation. We are taking expectation. So whether it is strong or weak, it doesn't matter. All it matters is the moments, right? So it doesn't really matter, strong or weak, it doesn't matter. So we are taking expectation. So in control problem, normally we take the viewpoint that we are worrying about the the weak solution. So if it is a weak solution, naturally the probability space for each control may be different. So I have a control here u, and the probability space may depend on the control, it may depend on the initial time, it may depend on the initial this. This means that if you want to write it in details, this means that the control, the probability space, for each u there is a probability space. So here the probability space depends on u. For each control there is a probability space pu, and I am taking the expectation with respect to this, and my starting time is t and the starting state is x. So this is the notation E u t x. U is the control, and now I have to take infimum with respect to such u. This is called the value function. This is the value function of the stochastic optimal control problem. So we will take a break here, and then I will come back and talk about the difficulties in stochastic dynamic programming. Any question that you have at this point? Now we will go about the concatenation and see.
No, so it is like integral, no?
Which one?
I mean, the integral is
Here, if it is relaxed control, it's an integral. Yeah, a written mu. So here also there will be relaxed control, means there will be an integral. Whenever there is a relaxed control, there is an additional integral. No, u convex. In some cases, if u is already convex, then the relaxed control and the usual control. In deterministic case, it's the same.
Yeah.
And no, I'm making a wrong statement. If your state is affine, then they are the same. If the state is not affine for a nonlinear thing, even if u is convex, the set of relaxed control and the set of usual control, even in deterministic, will be different. Even if u is convex, it will not have the same. So relaxed trajectory is larger than that. But if u is convex, you can do many things and prove the existence of a usual control. Minimizer. Usual control you can prove. No. I will soon come and to the non-degenerate case, and in the non-degenerate case, I will show you that the relaxed control is absolutely not necessary. It's only a technical requirement. Only a technical requirement to prove the dynamic programming. Other than that, we don't need. We don't need relaxed control for non-degenerate case. I will show you that. It's just a technical requirement. Because I want to emphasize on dynamic programming, I am introducing relaxed control. Relaxed control cannot be done. I mean, the way I have studied, it's difficult without doing relaxed control.
And also it is needed maybe only for because of the system is non-linear. If it is for linear system, then
Linear system with quadratic cost, etc. You can. I mean, I will also show you that dynamic programming can be redundant in many cases. You can bypass dynamic programming in linear systems. You don't need to prove it.
Do explicit calculation.
Explicit, whenever HJB equation has explicit solution, you don't need dynamic programming. Okay, so we'll meet after tea.